Good evening, folks. We are now going to open our council session this evening. We have actually three agendas we're going to be following this evening. We do have a special meeting of council that is going to be looking at the application for zoning bylaw amendment. The Department of Planning and Development report number 2013-54, the public hearing report for a zoning bylaw amendment file number D140613-2033 Fire Lane 2. That will as well be followed by our committee of the whole meeting, and as well, as you know, that's followed by our council meeting. So with that, I am going to ask Councillor Angie Desmarais to start us off with a prayer, and that will be followed by Mr. Joel Longfellow, who will lead us in the national anthem. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Heavenly Father, source of all truth and wisdom, who knows and loves the whole creation, continue to watch over our community, that truth may prevail over distortion, wisdom triumph over recklessness, and the concerns of every person be heard. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. As always, well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Members of council, we are now going to entertain a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Mover and seconder, Councillor Steele, Councillor Bodner. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? With none, we'll move on to the public hearing under the Planning Act. As I mentioned, we do have an application before members of council, and this will be looked after by one of our planners, Mr. Evan Acts. Evan, welcome.
Thank you. All right, I'm standing in. Oh, thank you, Stephen. Standing in for Dan Aquilina tonight. This is my first public meeting that I'm leading, so please bear with me. All right, the purpose of this meeting, pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, is to consider an application to amend the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 11509781 as amended. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment was initiated by the estate of Irene Hatch for the property known as Concession 1, Part Lot 16, Plan 59R 6390, Parts 1 and 3, Geographic Township of Humberstone in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 2033 Fire Lane 2. Method of notice. Notice of the public meeting was administered in accordance with Section 34, 12, 13, and 14 of the Planning Act as amended in Section 3 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. The notice of public meeting was mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property on August 14th, 2013. A public notice sign was posted on the property and at the intersection of Fire Lane 2 and Pinecrest Road on or before August 20th, 2013. A public notice was also posted on the city's website. Explanation of the procedure that's to be followed. I will be presenting the application for rezoning in the form of the public hearing report that the planning department has prepared. This will be followed by comments, if any, from the applicant, questions of clarification to the planning staff or applicant, followed by oral presentations and or questions by the public, followed by an announcement respecting written notice of passage of the zoning bylaw amendment, and then an explanation of future public meetings. right. So at the time of writing this report, and actually at the time of this meeting, staff has received no comments from the public on this application. The notice of public meeting was circulated onto required commenting agencies on August 14th, 2013, and to relevant city departments on August 16th, 2013. As of the date of writing this report, and actually the date of this meeting as well, the following agents have responded. Engineering and Operational Services. Engineering has reviewed the zoning bylaw amendment for 2033 Fire Lane 2 and have no adverse comments. End of comment. Fire and Emergency Services. Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services has reviewed application file number D140613 and has no concern with this application as proposed. End of comment. Regional Municipality of Niagara Public Works Department. The proposed rezonings will prohibit construction of structures or buildings on parts 2, 3, and 4, except that part 2 will provide land for septic services purposes only for part 1. Part 1 contains an existing dwelling. As a result, Regional Development Services staff is not opposed to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment from a provincial and regional perspective, subject to local planning considerations and the requirements of the NPCA from a natural heritage perspective. End of comment. And just for those following along, the parts that are referred to appear on Schedule A on the rear of the public notice. At the time of writing, and actually at the time of presenting, the NPCA has not yet forwarded comments to us. They've attempted to do so. There was a bit of a technical glitch. Planning Division. Comments from the Planning Division. The City of Port Colborne Official Plan 1980, Schedule C land use, designates the property lakeshore residential, agricultural, and hazard. Lakeshore residential lands are predominantly residential, either seasonal cottages or permanent homes. Agricultural lands contain much of the good general agricultural lands or woodlands. Within areas designated agricultural, conservation of plant and wildlife shall be permitted and encouraged. Hazard lands are defined as lands having inherent environmental hazard. The proposed land uses and zoning are compatible with the relevant sections of the City of Port Colborne Official Plan. Section K, subsection B, Item 2, Implementation and Interpretation of City of Port Colborne Official Plan, states for development zones, provisions may be made in the zoning bylaw for the establishment of development zones. Such a zone would be applied where it is not possible to determine the specific type, phasing, and servicing of development. It is intended that land uses in development zoned areas be restricted to the current uses and levels of intensity pending the completion of secondary plans, which will direct future land use in those areas when the city is satisfied through the preparation of a secondary plan that a planning application or other appropriate mechanism proposed for lands zoned development is desirable, can be adequately serviced, is not premature, when these lands may be rezoned. When the city is satisfied through the preparation of a secondary plan, I'm sorry, that's repeating. Okay. City of Port Colborne adopted Official Plan 2012. Note that this plan is not actually in force yet. Schedule A, citywide land use on the new official plan as adopted by council designate the subject property as a rural, environmental protection, and environmental conservation area. Land uses in the rural designation include single detached residential and natural heritage areas, lands designated as environmental protection areas and environmental conservation areas generally permit existing uses as well as passive uses that do not interfere with the natural heritage being protected or conserved. City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 1150/97/81. The City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw as amended zones the property LR, Lakeshore Residential, which permits one single detached dwelling or cottage/seasonal dwelling on one lot and uses buildings and structures accessory thereto. A northern portion of the lot is zoned RD, residential development, which permits one single detached dwelling on one lot and uses, buildings, and structures accessory thereto. The rest of the northerly portion of the property is zoned A, agricultural, which permits agricultural uses and uses, buildings, and structures accessory thereto, including greenhouses, one single detached dwelling on one lot, and uses and buildings and structures accessory thereto, on each lot existing at the date of passing of the zoning bylaw. Conservation of plant and wildlife, kennels, farm machinery sales and service establishments, wayside pits subject to the provisions of the Pits and Quarries Control Act. A southern portion of the lot is zoned EP, environmental protection, which permits agricultural uses and buildings and structures accessory thereto, saving and accepting human habitation. Dwellings existing at the date of the passing of the zoning bylaw, and enlargement thereof, and uses, buildings, and structures accessory thereto, parks, playgrounds, tennis courts, lawn bowling greens, outdoor natural rinks, athletic fields, golf courses, picnic areas, and boat launching ramps, boathouses, and docking facilities together with necessary and accessory structures, saving and accepting human habitation, control structures to prevent flooding and or erosion by water or wind. Adjacent zoning and land uses to the north, vacant land, zoned agricultural. The northeast, vacant land, zoned agricultural. To the east, vacant land, zoned agricultural and residential development. To the southeast, residential cottages, zoned lakeshore residential and Lake Erie. To the south, Lake Erie, southwest, residential cottages, zoned lakeshore residential, Lake Erie. To the west, vacant land, zoned agricultural and residential development. To the northwest, vacant land, zoned agricultural. In conclusion, the zoning bylaw amendment is necessary to satisfy Port Colborne Committee of Adjustments conditions for consent of the subject property in file B03/13-PC. The Planning Division will provide Council with its recommendation report after comments have been received from the public hearing and the review agencies. This report will be available at future Council meeting for Council's consideration. The recommendation that we are giving tonight is that public hearing report number 2013-54 regarding applications for a zoning bylaw amendment, file D14-0613, for 2033 Fire Lane to be received for information purposes. I will read the relevant parts of the draft zoning bylaw now. This amendment shall apply to lands described on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this bylaw. Those lands described on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this bylaw. The zoning map referenced on Schedule A1 forming part of bylaw 1150/97/81 as amended is hereby amended by changing those lands described on Schedule A attached from LR Lakeshore Residential to LR 370 reduced frontage and side yard, LR Lakeshore Residential to LR 371 septic tile bed, RD Residential Development to EP 372 Environmental Protection Special, and from A Agricultural to EP 372 Development Restrictions. That 30B, entitled Special Exceptions and Provisions of Zoning Bylaw 1150/97/81, as amended, is hereby further amended by adding the following. LR 370, lake reduced frontage and side yard, notwithstanding provisions of the LR Lakeshore Residential Zone. To the contrary, the following special zone regulations shall apply. Minimum lot frontage, 13.1 meters. Minimum westerly side yard, 2.9 meters. LR 371 septic tile bed, notwithstanding uses permitted in section 11.2 of this bylaw, this property shall only be used for a septic tile bed. No structure or fencing shall be permitted on this property. EP 372, development restrictions, notwithstanding the uses permitted in section 29.2 of this bylaw, no structures or fencing shall be permitted on the southeasterly 100 meters by 80 meter clearing of this property. Part 4 of the bylaw, that this bylaw shall come into force and take effect on the day it was passed by council, subject to the provisions of the Planning Act. In Part 5, the city clerk is hereby authorized and directed to proceed with giving the notice of the passing of this bylaw in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Now moving to Part 5 of the meeting, comments of the applicant. I know the agent of the applicant is here with us tonight. If he wishes to make a comment, he may.
Thank you, Mr. Raj. Mr. Lambie, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members, several weeks ago, my client received permission to sever the lakeshore home from a large parcel to the north of about 44 acres. A condition of that severance was that we rezone the property to satisfy city, region, and NPCA. So what we're doing tonight is I'm going to lead you through the requirements that we're meeting. The south part of the lot, which is from the high water mark to the water, is currently zoned environmental protection. That is staying the same. We're not making any change for that. The rest of the lot from the high water mark to the roadway is lakeshore residential. That's also staying the same, but we're also adding 2 restrictions for lot frontage because we're slightly under for lot frontage and also for the westerly side yard. The interesting point is Part 2, which is on the north side. We were required to add 1/3 of an acre to the north side, so we had the 1.0 acres according to the health department requirements. That is being zoned lakeshore residential special, so they can only be used as spare area for a septic tile bed. And the rest of the property, Part 3 and Part 4, we're changing to environmental protection to satisfy the requirements of the government agencies, and also my clients wish to do that as well. So that in essence is what's happening. It's pretty straightforward, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Lambie. Members of council, any questions or comments? With none, thank you, Mr. Lambie.
Thank you.
Mr. Raj.
Thank you. I think we've moved past Part 6 of the meeting. Questions or clarifications to planning staff and applicant?
Members of council, any questions to planning staff? With none, go ahead, Evan.
Okay. Section or Part 7 of the meeting, oral presentations and or questions by the public. Are there any members of the public in attendance that wish to make a comment, presentation, or question on this application?
Thank you, Mr. Raj. Members of the public, are there anybody who wants to make a presentation regarding this application? With none, Mr. Raj, the floor is back to you.
Okay, and now Part 8, announcement respecting written notice of passage of the zoning bylaw. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of the passing of a bylaw will be given notice.
Thank you.
Part 9, sorry, explanation of future meetings. This concludes the public hearing under the Planning Act. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will be placed on the council's agenda for the October 15th, 2013 meeting. There's also a sign-in sheet on the table in the committee room to the rear of council chambers for any members of the public that wish to sign in and receive notice of passage.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Well done. First time?
Yeah.
We never know. Good job, Evan. Members of council, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's agenda. I have Councillor Doucette, Councillor Danch. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Evan, once again, great job.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the committee of the whole portion of tonight's agenda. Members of council, I will ask the clerk to introduce any addendum items that she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of council, I need a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? With none, move on to items requiring separate discussion this evening. Are there any items requiring separate discussion? Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 3.
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4.
Thank you. Any further items? With none, if I can have a motion to accept the remainder of the items. Councillor Steele, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We have a few presentations this evening. First off, I'd like to invite up Mr. Doug Lockyer of the Port Colborne Lions Club, who's going to make a check presentation for this Fire Safety Education House donated by the Port Colborne Lions Club to the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services Department. Members of council, it is on page 13 of your agenda. The information with respect to this presentation, Mr. Lockyer and Chief Cartwright.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I'm not Doug, but he's coming. Here he is. Your Worship, members of council, senior staff, and the viewing audience. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to introduce members of the Lions Club. But the reason we're here this evening is, once again, the Lions Club are stepping forward to make a significant donation to the fire department in support of public safety in our municipality. It's very much appreciated. Over the years, they've done a number of donations towards the fire department. Two that come to mind, one is a large donation towards the rescue equipment, the Jaws of Life, and another one was our fire training center that we have, a computerized fire training center that the Lions funded fully for our use to train industry, children, adults in our community. So I'm going to ask Jason Hockley to step forward, the president of the Lions, to say a few words and also introduce the other members of the Lions Club.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to thank Council for having us out tonight. I have with me Doug Lockyer, board member. I have Kurt Rauscher, vice president. Dave Borbely, who heads up our car drive every year, and Jack McDowell, who's also a board member. This donation was quite an easy one to make. We do a number of donations throughout the year. Not many of this size, but considering the size, there was actually quite a small amount of debate, and it was a unanimous vote in favor to give this donation. I think all of our members can fully appreciate the value that there is in fire safety training for children. I myself have 2 small kids. I know Doug has grandkids who have benefited from it, and we all definitely appreciate the work that the fire department does. The fact that it passed so quickly and without any debate at all is a testament to the job that the Port Colborne Fire Department does and the faith we have in them to carry out this initiative. So with that, do you want to get the check? You got the big one behind you?
Your Worship, do you want to come forward, please, and assist us with this, if you don't mind?
So with that, we are quite pleased to make this donation of $10,872 to the Port Colborne Fire Department for the Fire Safety Training House.
Thanks, guys. That's a great job, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Vance.
Good job, guys. Thank you. Well done. You guys get up here. Get up. You guys are a heck of a lot more fun than I am. Come on, get up here. There's room there for everybody. There we go. You got something now? Over there? There you go. Look, what's that?
the treasurer up here.
Actually, you guys mute one.
No, I want to make sure the treasurer gets it. Because the treasurer, Mr. Sinise and I go back many, many years. Peter, just put it in the right drawer, okay?
Fire department's drawer.
You got it.
Thank you.
Doug, if I can just get you to come back, please, I'd appreciate it. One of the pictures in that group that were being run while we were talking is pretty sensitive to Doug, because actually what happened was, if you noticed in the picture, it was a picture of him laying in the inflatable bag outside, and Angie had just thrown him out of the window. Well, we had framed it up, and we've given it to him to take home for the rest of his days. So, Doug, thank you very much.
Chief, only you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. It's always an honor or a privilege to have two chiefs in the room. We have our former chief, Chief Locke, here, and our current chief, Chief Cartwright. So you guys behave back there, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, guys. Great job. Members, we're now going to move on to our second presentation this evening. We have Mr. Doug Ellingham, a professional engineer and Executive Vice President of Canada East, ACOM, regarding Niagara Region Transit Governance Review Service Delivery here in the Niagara Region. Members, I'm going to ask these gentlemen to come on up, and they are going to make a brief presentation, but this is something that we've talked about in the past, and I thought it would be very important to invite these folks up to Port Colborne to give a presentation on regional transit. You are quite well versed in where we're at right now, but I'll ask you to do a few things this evening upon receipt of this presentation. Personally, I've been very adamant at the regional level that a lot of the information or the recommendation that's going to come before Regional Council be driven from, and I don't like using this expression, but I guess it's reality with respect to our governance model here in Niagara, be driven from the bottom up, so that therefore the local municipalities have a lot to say and give with respect to injecting their input into how they feel Niagara-wide transit should proceed. So with that said, I will be asking members of Council upon the delivery of the presentation this evening to ask as many questions as you have to and give as much input as you need to, so that therefore a lot of this can be brought to the Regional Council. Okay. Doug, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Your Worship, members of Council, staff, thank you very much for the opportunity to present or represent some of the material that we've been sharing with your municipal colleagues in municipalities across the region of Niagara. And to begin the presentation, I wanted to start by indicating that our mandate in this study, Your Worship, was basically to provide advisory services to the regional staff on possible delivery and operational structures should the region decide to move forward with an integrated transit scenario for the region of Niagara. We were not asked to make a specific recommendation regarding regional or integrated transit itself, but only to provide options and background information relative to our experience with similar activities in other regions across the greater Golden Horseshoe, some of which I will share with you tonight. So what I'm going to cover very, very briefly tonight, I'm going to try and keep this shorter than the previous presentations to the other municipalities, is basically to talk a little bit about the value of integrated transit and the region's sentiment towards the need for improved intermunicipal transit. The experience of other jurisdictions I'm going to cover very quickly, because it does give you an example or several examples of the kind of process that other regions and municipalities went through across the Greater Golden Horseshoe, some governance options, some transit service delivery options, and then a sense of next steps that where we're going with our particular report. We began the study in May. Much of our work has involved consultations with major stakeholders within the region, including the operators of the three major transit services. We've also met with and attempted to meet with other public sector providers of transit service, and we've had presentations to Committee of the Whole at the region and the Transit Steering Committee. We're in the process of putting a report together that will eventually end up at Committee of the Whole at the Region and Council in September and or October. So I don't want to read all the material on my slides, other than to say this slide basically covers some statements regarding the importance or value of integrated transit as viewed by the regional and local municipalities and articulated in a lot of regional policy documents. So it deals with things like providing increased mobility, increased accessibility for residents of Niagara in general, including those with disabilities and those who don't have access or can't afford an automobile, environmental, safety benefits, supporting regional growth, and supporting regional economic development. So a lot of motherhood issues relating to the value of transit services. And I keep going the wrong way with this thing. Some basic facts about trip making and travel in the region, which puts in context the need for integrated services. About 70% of the area municipal residents travel to other municipalities within the region at least 1 or 2 times a week, with 34% of the residents traveling between municipalities every day. There are more than 100,000 intermunicipal trips that occur daily, and the current intermunicipal pilot project is capturing a small but growing share of this market. And certainly there are a number of people in the community who believe that the status quo is no longer an option for a number of social, economic, and environmental reasons. And I think if you recall, in 2010, Regional Council approved and adopted a public transit vision. And some of that vision is articulated here. And I think there are 2 points I'd like to make here that are important. One is the provision of affordable and reliable transit, which is important to council and the public. And the last one, which is turning out to be one of the more important aspects of this particular study and the consultation with your colleagues in neighboring municipalities, has been a recognition of the need for more integrated transit service. But the issue is providing the cost of providing such a system must be distributed in a fair and equitable manner, and that's something that certainly will need to be addressed as we move forward. Just a reminder of the pilot project. Many call it either a Tri-City project or a triangle. It's the essential linkages are between the 3 major service providers, Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls, and there are other secondary linkages, including to Port Colborne. Yeah, I'm not very good at this one. So just a reminder in terms of context, there are 3 major service providers. The local municipalities currently own and operate their own services. The intermunicipal services are currently paid for through the region, but are levied to all of the municipalities. The original proposal for the pilot project originated with the local municipalities, and the intermunicipal service links the 3 major city centers and the 3 smaller municipalities, but does not provide full intermunicipal service. I'm not going to dwell on this slide, but I am going to make reference to 3 possible governance structures for an integrated transit system, and I'm just going to quickly talk about define them. On one end of the spectrum, there's a transit agency, which is would essentially be a department of the region, to make it very simple. Secondly, would be a transit commission, which would be an arm's length body of the region and would require provincial approval. The third one would be a control corporation, which could include but not be limited to actually contracting out various elements of the service across the region. So I'm going to, the reason I mentioned that was I'm going to talk about 3 different jurisdictions very quickly, just to give you a sense of the kinds of changes that have occurred at a number of regions within the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And the first one is the region of Waterloo, and they amalgamated approximately 10 years ago into what they call Grand River Transit. It's currently operated as a transit agency, so it's essentially a department of the region of Waterloo, and they report to departments within the region and ultimately to council. I think the important point to take away from this slide is that, or a couple of important points, is that the region funds the service from property taxes based on services received within each municipality. In other words, the funding or the levies are based on the level of service that each municipality has provided. So in Waterloo, they have several larger urban areas and a number of small rural or semi-urban areas. They don't pay the same for transit. It is based on the level of service that's provided. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the major issues that we've been encountering in our contact with the stakeholders here. It is a full amalgamation with in-house service delivery. GRT also provides services to most secondary schools in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge areas. And another piece of information that we produced is, and I'm not going to go through this, what we were trying to show here with this graph was service, levels of service and ridership and population before and after amalgamation. And one point I do want to make here is that we don't want to mislead anybody and suggest that just deciding to go to an integrated transit system will result in a huge increase in ridership. There are a lot of other factors that have to be taken into account, such as the level of service that's provided, the frequency, the number of vehicles in the system, and the system structure as well. So when you look at the 3 graphs I'm going to show you, the ridership, which here is shown in blue, increased 1% per annum before amalgamation and 8% per annum after amalgamation. But again, not just because they decided we were going to amalgamate, but there was a lot of investment in equipment and a lot of investment in increasing revenue hours on the system. The next one, next region I want to talk about is region of York. And we certainly acknowledge that not every region is alike in terms of geography or urban structure, but I think a lot of the issues that they faced as part of the integration process was similar. Region of York is a transit agency, and they actually operate 2 different systems. One is called Viva, you've probably heard of, and the second one is a conventional service provided by what they call YRT, York Region Transit. In the case of both Viva and YRT, and Viva is what I call a high-end service. It's operated on Highway 7 and Yonge Street. It's operated in a dedicated lane on the roadway with much higher end stations. It's intended to attract a higher level of commuter service on Highway 7 and Yonge Street. So the buses are very upscale. They're air conditioned, very nice seats, very different than a conventional service that you would see in St. Catharines or Niagara Falls. So it's essentially a premium service, and you pay a premium fare to ride that service. In comparison to Waterloo region, the service, both YRT and Viva, is paid through property taxes levied equally across the region. So no matter the size of your municipality or the amount of revenue service hours that you are given, you pay the same across the region. So I got one right for a second here. Again, this graph shows the before and after ridership and population levels in York Region. And again, after amalgamation, there was significant investment in service, significant investment in equipment in order to achieve the ridership increases that are shown here. York Region is now achieving annual growth of about 14% a year in transit, and prior to that it was about 4% a year. Now again, every region is not the same in terms of population growth as well, but certainly compared to the population growth, the ridership increase in both Waterloo and York was significant. The last one that I want to share with you today is Durham Region. Durham actually operates a transit commission. So again, it's sort of an arm's length body that reports to the region. The difference is that the commission has the ability to have outside residents and business people and experts on a commission. It does require approval of the province to establish a commission. And in Durham, which has a series of urban areas and rural areas, very much like Niagara, property taxes are leveled equally across the municipalities. In terms of service delivery, there's nothing really unique about the Durham service except for one thing. And Durham, in terms of investment in equipment, was not able to afford the kind of investment initially that they would want to provide service in the region. They struck a deal with GO Transit to allow internal travel within the region to occur on GO buses on existing service. They paid the municipal fare. The residents paid the municipal fare to travel internally, but the region subsidized the difference between their regular fare and the GO Transit normal fare. And although it cost the region some money, it saved them a significant capital expense in acquiring brand new buses, which would essentially compete with GO service on Highway 2 and Highway 12 through the region of Durham. Again, same graph for Durham, showing increases in ridership and population as a result of amalgamation and increase of services. So I've already talked a little bit about some of the governance options, the transit agency. Which is really a department within the regional government that manages service. Some of the features are the capital assets are generally owned by the region. The assets are transferred from the local municipalities as a result of negotiations between the region and the local municipalities. And again, this is a key aspect of any integration if it is to be operated by the region. Some of these negotiations have been fairly difficult because everybody believes their assets are potentially worth more than the upper tier might be willing to pay. The next one is the Transit Commission. And again, it's an arm's length body. Transit Agency, Transit Commission. And this can be implemented either at a regional level or through the joint agreement of a number of municipalities. It's really the equivalent of a services board. This is used by region of Durham. It's similar to what TTC operates. The daily operations are administered by the CEO and the general manager. Day-to-day operations are managed by the commission, but major decisions are made by the councils, whether it's the regional council or municipal councils. Some of the assets would be transferred from the municipalities to the commission. On the strengths and weaknesses side, whereas an agency can operate just as a department, commission really has no ability to borrow money on its own and has to go through a council, requires provincial legislative changes, and the commission does accept liability for the transit system. And one of the strengths, well, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, one of the strengths may be the ability to have non-elected officials on the commission to help with the operation and management of the system. And the last one is something we call a controlled corporation. It's a legal entity that's established by the region or jointly owned or jointly by the lower tier municipalities. It's managed by a board of directors, which could include elected officials and non-elected officials. Operations are independent from government. The risks and liabilities associated with the operation are shifted to the corporation. Assets could be transferred from the municipalities to the corporation. And York Region Rapid Transit, or VIVA, is an example of a controlled corporation. On the strengths and weaknesses side, they're less restricted in terms of financial relationships with the municipalities. Liability is shifted from the municipalities to the corporation. There is a sense of reduced council control, and that may include longer-term decisions being separated from shorter-term decisions. On the weakness side, reduced council control may result in corporation making decisions contrary to council's direction. So unless you're very careful and you don't establish some very rigid and strict operating policies, you could find a controlled corporation making decisions to either reduce or increase transit that may not be consistent with the will of the municipality. So I apologize for rushing through this. So some possible transit service delivery options for the region and constituent municipalities. One would be, of course, to terminate the pilot project, which I think expires next year, approximately a year from now. Second option might be to retain and potentially expand the intermunicipal pilot, and there's a number of governance options that could be considered and a number of ways of funding an expanded intermunicipal pilot. We could move to a one transit scenario operated by a governing entity, such as an agency, a commission, or a control corporation. And one transit, which would be integrated transit, operated by a mix of public and private sector players. So there's obviously a number of ways that you could move forward with integrated transit. There's also a number of ways that this could be funded. This would be a decision made by local municipalities and regional council. So the next steps for us are basically to complete our report and to make final presentations to Committee of the Whole and Regional Council. And I guess, you know, what are we looking for? Just as we have done with any other of our consultations during this process, we're really looking for feedback. We're looking for issues, opportunities, concerns that you might have as an interested party or a stakeholder in the process, any options we may not have considered, and discussion of opportunities towards maintaining and improving transit within the region. We're also looking for areas of concern that we can share with our client, the staff of the region of Niagara. And again, I would remind you that it's not our responsibility to actually provide a recommendation about integrated transit, but to put a lot of the background information on the table, and most importantly, to provide the region with the commentary from the stakeholder discussions that we've had over the course of the last 2 or 3 months. So again, I apologize for the length and the speed of the presentation, but I know some of you have seen the material before, and I'm most prepared, Your Worship, to answer any questions that your council might have. Thank you.
Mr. Ellingham, well done. Thank you. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This regional transportation system is going to be critical for most of our citizens here in the South End, because most of the medical appointments, most of the medical meetings that are going to have to take place, most of the people that want to visit someone that is going to be in a lot of trouble is going to be in the North End. Has this been taken a look, have we taken a good look at this to make sure that whatever happens, that that service continues for the South End, to make sure that the citizens in the South End that do not have vehicles can at least get on some kind of form of transportation and go to the North End to the hospital that is up there?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Ellingham.
Through the chair to Councillor Doucette. Certainly these issues have been raised through our stakeholder consultations. At the end of the day, we'll certainly pass on that commentary to regional staff. The design of any future integrated system will obviously have to take into account the main attractors for residents of the community, and I can tell you in other scenarios that we've worked on, hospitals, universities, medical centers have been a key focal point of the development of any system, and those are the drivers for a lot of ridership on conventional transit systems.
Thank you. Councillor? That's good. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. We have a great transit system in Port Colborne, and we've seen increases in our ridership as well, especially with the link that happened. That really was a great pilot, and it has worked very well. I noticed on almost all the scenarios that you gave us from both Waterloo, York, and now I'm just looking at the Durham region, it says that the specialized or services would be provided by a private sector. So in other words, that's a concern of mine, that everything always, we have rural areas in Port Colborne where that actually just came up at our last transit meeting, where we were looking at, could we provide a bus service to individuals from the rural system so that they could get a link here and then get a link again to go to St. Catharines or Niagara Falls, wherever they want to go. So I guess I want, when you're considering or making your final presentation, to consider those specialized services to the remote areas. I'm not always in favor of that going to the private sector. I think that if you've got a system that everybody's paying for already, that's a separate thing that should really be taken into consideration. And also I noticed on here, on the one from Durham, it says that they're also providing services to secondary schools. So does that eliminate an expense of the school board? I guess the school board, if now a regional transit system is going to be developed, would the students then be able to get on that regional transit system and the school board kind of get off the hook for providing transportation for their students to the schools?
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks.
Mr. Ellingham.
Through the chair to Councillor Kenny, some great points. I would point out that the region of Durham service actually is, the specialized transit service is actually provided by Durham Region Transit.
Oh,
so it
that's
is
good.
publicly funded.
Yeah,
the other two do have significant components of their specialized service, which is contracted out. And again, that is really something that would have to be considered in the context of designing a new integrated transit system. It is something that could be evolved over time and staged. On the matter of the providing service to the secondary schools, both Region of Durham and the region of Waterloo, a reasonable portion of their ridership comes from providing services to schools. And it is both to replace and complement services provided by the school boards. And I think this day and age when you, and I apologize for rambling on here with this answer, but in this day and age when we're all challenged to fund transportation, it seems to me that any duplication of service is a waste of money. And what's been happening in other jurisdictions is that school boards have been working with municipalities and regions to make sure that there isn't duplication of service. So where a school board it cannot afford to provide service, then perhaps there's an arrangement made with the region to provide that service, so you don't have the duplication of service in the same area. So you don't want an empty bus running around.
That's right.
And a school bus running behind it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Comments? No further questions or comments? Just one thing I picked up that you were saying throughout over and over in your presentation, Doug, was you made it very clear that this is not a regional system, or it's not planned to be a regional system. It's planned to be an integrated system. And there's a big difference there. A lot of people, when they hear the Big R region, they sort of take a step back and put their backs up against the wall, and sometimes for good reason, sometimes for not. But I think what's been very well known at the regional level is that that's not the intent. The intent is to provide options, but ultimately the intent is to integrate a transit system here within the region of Niagara, not necessarily to be a regional system. And I think that's very important to understand and be cognizant of as we move forward. So, Doug, well done. I thank you for your presentation, your time this evening. I'm sure councillors may have some questions or comments that they'll provide me or Councillor Barrick in the future that we can bring back to the region. But ultimately, to give them the understanding of where you're at and your time this evening, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and to council, thank you.
Members of council, if I can have a motion to receive the presentation, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Our next presentation, we have delegations now. We're going to move on to the first delegation. I don't see Vic Kerschel here. You don't look like Vic Kerschel. But we do have a representative from the Alzheimer's Society Foundation Board regarding their 17th annual coffee break campaign for the Alzheimer's Society. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council, city staff, members of the public. Actually, my name is not Vic Kerschel. My name is Judy Willems, and I am the president of Alzheimer's Society Board of Directors for Niagara Region. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you briefly about our 18th annual coffee break campaign. The vision and inspiration of Niagara's own Alzheimer's Society Coffee Break has now evolved into a nationwide annual fundraiser for Alzheimer's societies across Canada, and it's raised millions of dollars. National Coffee Break Day is Thursday, September 19th, with more than 10,000 coffee breaks expected to take place across the country. Locally, our campaign will kick off on that day and run from September through December. An Alzheimer coffee break is a time to invite your coworkers, clients, friends, family, or neighbors to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or other preferred beverage at a break time or another social get-together in exchange for a donation. All of the funds raised in Niagara stay here to support the programs and services of the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region to improve the quality of life of individuals and their families with Alzheimer's disease or other dementias. Hosting a coffee break is fun, it's social, it's very easy to organize. Our society supplies a kit. The host supplies the people in the venue. Each kit includes coffee for that first pot, a donation box, and promotional signage and literature. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on that national day, you are certainly welcome to choose a date that's more convenient to you. Our local campaign runs from September to December. So coffee break events are held in homes, workplaces, community centers, schools, churches, city halls, retail outlets, just about anywhere a social gathering can take place and where coffee, other beverages, or food can be served and a donation collected. Some of the most successful events in the past have involved doing something creative. Whether it's an open house, barbecue, raffle, dress down days, selling coffee cup decals, or rounding up at the cash register, every break truly makes a difference to the lives of those in your community affected by this devastating disease. This year's honorary chair is Sue Blaine with Rexall Pharma Plus in Beamsville, and Sue and her team will kick off the campaign on Thursday, September 19th at their store on Ontario Street in Beamsville beginning at 11 a.m. A couple of region-wide notable initiatives that everybody can support include Bulk Barn stores asking customers for a donation for a coffee cup decal at the registers and matching the donations made on September 20th. And on November 20th, 20 Avondale stores throughout Niagara will donate 20% of the proceeds from coffee sales that day. So why is our campaign so important? Alzheimer's disease and related dementias are not a normal part of aging. Dementia is a degenerative and progressive disease. It affects 747,000 Canadians today, for which there is no known cure or effective means by which to delay its onset or progression. Within the next 2 decades, dementia will affect 1.4 million Canadians. Here in Niagara, we have a unique challenge. We have one of the highest percentages of seniors per capita in Canada, and yet we lack the available geriatric resources compared to other communities. Currently, there are over 8,500 people in Niagara who are experiencing a progressive dementia, and this number continues to grow. Significant challenges are faced by these individuals. Maybe you know some of them, maybe they're in your family. Their family members and others who care for them really need your help during the progression of this disease. A recognized leader in the field of dementia care, the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region's mission is to advocate for people with dementia and their care partners and provide access to the diverse range of appropriate resources and supports along the continuum of care. Dementia does not define the person. People with dementia are still people with unique abilities and strengths. They deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Taking advantage of support and information early in the disease process has a positive effect on the quality of life for people with dementia and prepares their care partners and families for the future, which ultimately decreases the demand on health-based resources. Every year, our society must fundraise for approximately $600,000 of its $1.8 million budget. Coffee Break is our significant event. With the support of more than 300 hosts, last year we raised $100,000. This year, more than ever, we need to count on your support, and we want to reach our goal of $105,000. Whether you host a coffee break in your home or your workplace or as part of a service club or social group activity, you will be committing to the individuals and families in Niagara. They are your neighbors and they need your support. I encourage each and every one of you to consider hosting your own event and make your coffee count. Anybody can register for a free coffee break kit by calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region or by visiting the website alzheimersniagara.ca. The Mayor of St. Catharines, Brian McMullen, has issued a region-wide challenge to all city halls in the Niagara region for the Alzheimer's Society Coffee Break campaign. The city who raises the most for their coffee break event will win bragging rights for the 2013 campaign. I thank you for your time this evening and your consideration in participating in this very worthwhile endeavor. And Your Worship, may I please present to you your own coffee break host kit. Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Judy. That was a great presentation. We do this every year over in the Market Square. We have our coffee break. And I'll take Mr. McMullen, Mayor McMullen, up on his challenge. The thing is, I'll knock the wager up a bit. I think the winner should get the most or the biggest chunk of the capital regional pie at budget time. So maybe that'll. But by all means, we look forward to that day as well. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Members of council, our final delegation this evening is Mr. Mike Hopper. Mike represents the downtown Port Colborne Business Improvement Area, the BIA, and he will be introducing Crime Stoppers of Niagara and the introduction information of the Awareness and Prevention Program. Mr. Hopper, welcome, as always.
Your Worship, members of council, city staff, regional councillor, and no guests left, but I had the privilege and opportunity to attend the Ontario BIA conference in June, and a major retailer made a presentation of the issues that they had encountered in their stores in a particular area of Ontario, and then they implemented Crime Stoppers and what an impact Crime Stoppers had on the reduction of the crime in those stores. I felt that there was an opportunity to bring it to the BIA to see if there was an interest to pursue it for our own downtown retailers. Crime Stoppers gracefully came and made a presentation to us, and in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce and the Main Street BIA, we've decided to move forward and try and implement Crime Stoppers throughout the city. And so I've asked Mr. Trombley, who's the Niagara Chair, and Terry and Mike to come and present to City Council to answer any questions you have and to make you aware of the prevention side of Crime Stoppers. I want to make it clear this is not a knee-jerk reaction to one of the unfortunate events that have just taken place. This started in June. In fact, Luke put an article in the Leader about the lack of activity and crime in the downtown, and right after that we did have a few issues. Maybe if people had already seen Crime Stoppers and were aware of it, we may have had some leads that may have followed to some arrests, but it's definitely a preventative opportunity. So I'd ask the board and members to come and make a presentation to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship, member of council and city staff, we're really fortunate to have an opportunity to give you a little bit of an idea about how Crime Stopper works, because there are a lot of sometimes misconception about how Crime Stopper works, as well as who we are. And a way of doing this, let me show you a short, very, very short video. So if you could put the video on, please, that would be great. I think you have the video on file. And I'll come back, and then I'll give you the specifics of Crime Stoppers Niagara.
Program you've probably heard of, but may not know that much about. It's called Crime Stoppers.
Crime Stoppers is a great way for people like you and me to help battle crime. Everything from graffiti and vandalism, right up to armed robbery and murder.
We're going to take a look at how the program works and explode some of the popular myths about it.
Crime Stoppers was started by Greg McAlee, a Canadian-born detective living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He was working on a case involving a botched gas station robbery where the attendant had been killed and was having no luck. Then he had a brilliant idea. He convinced the local TV station to broadcast a reenactment of the crime and even put up some reward money himself.
After only 7... McAleese was so impressed with the results that he asked the chief to continue this type of approach to solving crime. Over the following 4 months, Crime Stoppers solved 300 crimes, and the program really took on.
Today, they're in programs worldwide, all using the same ideas and principles.
Many people don't know this, but Crime Stoppers isn't run by the police.
That's right. It's actually a volunteer group made up of concerned citizens who care about having a safer community and reducing crime.
It works by allowing citizens to pass on important information about crimes to the authorities by telephone, text messages, or webmail. But some people may have concerns about the process.
Can you be identified? Will you have to appear in court? Let's take a closer look and find out.
If you call Crime Stoppers, you're not calling the police department. And you will remain anonymous because they don't have call display.
If you use text messaging, No worries. These messages are encrypted for your protection. This means that they go to a server where the call ID is stripped. So now it's only the message that's moving through cyberspace. It travels to the company that developed the software, and they redirect it to the appropriate Crime Stoppers area. In our area, you simply have to use the word Niagara in your message, and it'll end up with the Niagara Crime Stoppers. You remain anonymous, but the suspects don't. And the tipster is afforded legal protection as a confidential informant. That means they'll never have to worry about being identified or ordered to appear in court.
Now, let's talk money, as in cash rewards. Crime Stoppers offers cash rewards for tips that lead to an arrest or conviction. This money doesn't come from the police department or government, but from volunteer fundraising programs. The amount of money that's offered varies and is based on an established scale. In general, the more serious the crime, the greater the reward. Successful tipsters are given a number. They simply give that number to the assigned bank or financial institution and are given an envelope containing cash. No questions asked. Remember, the reputation of this program depends on keeping the tipsters anonymous. That means no one should have any reservations about passing on info.
Just one look at the statistics should convince anybody that Crime Stoppers is an amazingly successful program.
That's right, solving crimes in your community, total protection of your identity, and possibly a cash reward.
And you think that's the best part, right?
Well, you know, a little extra money now and then never hurt.
Okay, well, you better keep your eyes open then.
Oh, I always keep my eyes open.
Thank you. So as you can see, Crime Stoppers really we're not part of the police per se. So what we need to do every year is actually fundraise all the reward money that we approve. In Niagara, okay, so I'm going to have the same thing. Okay, so excellent. Okay, so in Niagara, we're covering actually a fairly large territory. We cover from lake to lake and all the way to Grimsby. So the territory that we cover is significant. We've been in existence since 1985. Sorry about this. We currently, oops. Anybody else has control of this device?
Do you want to go to the next slide?
Yep, please. Okay, so actually I'm just going to speak to that, if you will. Our board is composed of 16 members that represent essentially almost all the municipalities, but we're always looking for individuals to join our board. And some of the skills we have on the boards are extremely varied, and we operate under a subcommittee structure. Next one, please. Next. The responsibility, the prime responsibility for our board are definitely to approve the rewards. Okay. Is this going to work better if I click on this one, or? You should be able to see the screen a little bit easier, I'm not sure. Oh, okay, that's fine. So the primary responsibility for the board member are essentially to fundraise for the rewards and also approve the rewards every month. We meet, and the board, we have a police coordinator that comes to our meeting and tells us essentially the various tips that have been provided and also that resulted in some charges. And the police coordinator provides us with a recommended reward, and the board decides essentially the rewards that will be approved. In the Niagara area, we work with all of these law enforcement agencies, the OPP, RCMP, Niagara Police, and also the Ontario Racing Commission when they were operating in this area. We could go fairly quickly on this since the video is pretty self-explanatory as to how we could receive the tips. We could receive them either through the internet, you could do that through text messaging, or you could just give us a call. Again, the tips is provided. The tipster calls us. We provide them with, they provide us with the information, and then we provide them with a number, and we tell them to call us back within a month or two. And at this point in time, the information is passed on to the police department, who does the investigation. After the follow-up by our police coordinator, then we find out from the police department whether this resulted into some charges. And if it is the case, then a reward is suggested to the board for approval. And at that point in time, the individual that were provided with a number will call us back with their number, and we will tell them whether there's a reward that has been approved. And when that has been approved, we just tell them to go to a certain bank and just has to identify themselves with the number that we provided, and then the individual is provided with a cash reward. Last year's statistics, as you can see, we've received 1,500 some odd tips, ended up into 50 some odd arrests, and we cleared about 35 cases. So Crime Stoppers certainly works for sure. We approve on the reward side about $15,000 rewards. As you could see also last year, we really didn't pay as much rewards as we normally do. Typically, the rate of payment for the reward is more around the 35%. A lot of the people that are providing us with tips are not as much interested in the reward, but they're certainly just good citizens. And as a result of that, they just want to make sure that they live in a safe and vibrant community as opposed to just collecting the reward. The property we recovered is over $100,000 last year, and also over $1 million of drugs were seized. Last year was one of actually a very not as active year for us. The year before, we had over $10 million worth of drugs seized in the Niagara area. Just here it gives you some statistics about not only the Crime Stoppers of Niagara, but also worldwide. We have over $10 billion of either drug seized or property recovered over the years. So the programs, Crime Stoppers, definitely works. We have, over the year as well, had several initiatives, some of them with the school program, where we try to make Crime Stoppers a lot more aware with the students in the various school and the school board in the Niagara area. We also did some cooperative work with the City of St. Catherine on the graffiti side. And we are trying to stay in touch with the various council and service club to promote Crime Stoppers, since Crime Stoppers is not as well known as it should be. We certainly have COGECO TV that helps us out as well. We do have a website that's going to be redesigned very shortly. We do periodically some media release. And the promotional video is the video that you just saw, that we just rolled. And Crime Stopper vehicle at this point in time is was just actually required a lot of repairs, and we do not have that vehicle right now, but we're looking into another vehicle to replace this one. And 3 times a year, CHCH from Hamilton does some recreation of crimes, where we could try to essentially see if people will be coming up with some tips. And of course, we take part of the various functions, such as the Police Week and some special fundraising event. Some of the fundraising event we have this year, for instance, this is our major fundraising event. That's our gala on October 5th. And this particular gala will be held at a Club Roma. We also have a partnership with Connect Marketing, where every year they have a show. Like this year, that was Ryan David on May 5th, that was an illusionist, and this Connect Marketing essentially donate the funds to Crime Stoppers. We've also ran a electronic recycling program. This was the Ryan David show. And of course, next year, Crime Stopper of Niagara will be the host for the Summit at the Falls for all of the provincial Crime Stoppers. There are about 39 some odd program in Ontario, and we're going to be the host in Niagara Falls for all of these programs, and there will be representation as well from Canada and from Crime Stopper International. So what can you do as a citizen for Crime Stoppers? As an individual, we just would like you to be more aware of Crime Stoppers and also make actually the public much more aware for Crime Stoppers. And of course, the guarantee of anonymity for Crime Stoppers is the cornerstone for us. There's never police or court. So these are the 3 ways that you could get in touch with us for the tips. As a council member, one of the things that we've done with other council is having possibility of putting maybe bumper stickers like we have on all our regional police cars. So any city vehicle or public vehicle that could possibly have this. The use of the network for just extending the awareness of Crime Stoppers. And we have also a couple councils where we have a liaison member that stay in touch with us. And we could, at times when there's opportunity to develop some special programs, we could use the liaison officer for that. So these are various skills on board that we have, and we're always looking for volunteer. And we're open for questions.
Great, thank you. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
Members of council, any questions or comments? With none?
Thank you
very much. Appreciate it. One question I do have, actually. Where can we get those bumper stickers?
Pardon me?
Where can we get those bumper stickers?
You can get them from us. So
Yeah.
Terry will provide you with bumper stickers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Members of council, we'll now move on to my report this evening. And with that, followed by the regional council's report. With respect to the NGTA Corridor Planning and Environmental Assessment Study, members of council may have read most recently in the media that the summary of the Ministry of Transportation's Niagara to Greater Toronto Area Transportation Development Strategy is recommending over $1 billion to build a new South Niagara, hospital. But that's the second wish that we have, to build a new South Niagara Highway. Members of council will recall last year, actually 2 years ago, the release of the draft report in March 2011. Within this report, as you know, the ministry stated that, and I quote, in the east end of the study area, providing a new corridor between Highway 406 and the city of Welland, between Welland and Port Colborne, and the QEW within the town of Fort Erie, would avoid the need for further widening of the QEW through the city of St. Catharines and crossing the Niagara Escarpment until beyond 2031. Further, they stated that further widening of the QEW through the city of St. Catharines area beyond the 6 lanes that are currently being constructed could be expected to have a significant community impact. Well over 100 residences would have to be displaced, and there would be a major impact to a number of businesses and industrial areas within that corridor. Further, in addition, a new corridor would provide alternative access and flexibility for goods and people movement to the border, along with the economic benefits of a direct connection between the Gateway Economic Center within the city of Welland and Port Colborne area, south part of Niagara, and the Gateway Economic Zone, which exists along the Niagara River as defined in the province's growth plan. Moreover, a new corridor connection would allow opportunities for better border management by providing a higher order highway alternative to facilitate better distribution of traffic between the Niagara border crossings. It further states that from an overall perspective, the study team believes that the new corridor alternative provides the best balance of advantages and disadvantages from a triple bottom line factor. Triple bottom line, as members of council recognize, is those respecting the environment, the economy, and the community, and a transportation perspective. Therefore, a new corridor connection connecting Highway 406 and the QEW is preferred. As members of council do recognize, and I'm sure you've read, that the multimodal transportation development final strategy for the Niagara to GTA corridor and environmental assessment study was released last Wednesday and has confirmed their support within the draft for a new east-west arterial road. As members of council as well recognize, this has been a major project that we, both here locally as well as regionally, have been working on for quite some time with our partners that does in fact include the local level, both council as well as staff, the regional level, once again, the committees at the regional level as well as staff, and the provincial level as well as members of the private sector and additional organizations from both sides of the border. Members of council, as you as well know, this is significant for South Niagara. It's unprecedented, and in particular for the city of Port Colborne, as both the region and the province have recognized that there is a need to steer Niagara's economy in a direction which favors our strengths in terms of our location as a gateway for trade, such as South Niagara's significant multimodal transportation infrastructure. By prioritizing the need for road infrastructure improvements in South Niagara, the province is now, in fact, walking the talk, recognizing increased opportunities for multimodal cross-border trade, goods movement, and tourism for our key economic clusters that currently exist here in South Niagara, such as steel and metal manufacturing and fabricating, aerospace, distribution, logistics, food processing, health, biosciences, green technologies, tourism, and of course agriculture. Their recommended strategy enhances the inventory of development-ready industrial employment lands that this community has recently established through our Gateway strategy, ensuring economic diversification through the implementation of our overall economic and lifestyle strategies, while communicating globally the advantages of doing business here in South Niagara in a consistent and comprehensive manner. As well, members of council, with respect to Northland Point, again, as we've discussed in the past and reports that I've given you, the region's long-term care facility located here in the city of Port Colborne, which overlooks our beautiful marina, H.H. Noel Park, and of course the shores of Lake Erie, will be getting a $4 million facelift this upcoming year. I have mentioned to you in the past at previous meetings that the current siding that was installed when built in 2001 was failing and needed to be replaced. Although regional staff recommended to replace it once again with siding, which I'll reserve my comments on, I did take the time when that recommendation was made to speak to the consultants as well as others to investigate more appropriate siding that would better withstand, of course, the lakefront elements and be more conducive with the surrounding area, the surrounding lakefront area, with respect to aesthetics. Long story short, just to cut to the chase, Regional Council ultimately agreed with the recommendation that I had brought forward, which ratifies the following. And I want to be clear on this because although they ratified this, it could come back to us depending on the understructure, that being the structure underneath the current siding. So therefore, the recommendation read as follows and was passed not unanimously. There was 2 against it, believe it or not, but ultimately it was passed. That the study, recladding systems comparative for Northland Point, dated July 5th, 2013, prepared by Halso and Associates, be received, and that the opinion, or I'm sorry, that the option of an exterior insulation finish system, the acronym being EIFS, hybrid consisting of an impact-resistant cladding system at grade with EIFS on the remaining sections as identified in the study, be approved, subject to the confirmation that the existing walls in their entirety can accommodate this option, and that staff proceed with the detailed design work, and that the additional funding over and above the funding that was originally identified in the amount of $3.9 million for the EIFS hybrid be identified for this project in the proposed 2014 capital budget. Once again, it was passed unanimously. What this siding is more like a stucco siding, more, again, appropriate aesthetically as well as with respect to the conditions on the lakefront versus aluminum siding, which has been there for quite some time, and I think we all had an opinion on that when it was first built, and continue to have that same opinion as we drive by there on occasion. So good news for Northland Point, and hopefully a lot of the problems that they were having up to date will subside and be eliminated due to the fact that the siding is going to be put on. Lastly, members of council, I do want to, and finally, take this opportunity to congratulate our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the west, both the city of Welland and the township of Wainfleet, if you folks are watching. And when I say you folks, more importantly, the residents, the businesses, and the many volunteers and sponsors for two outstanding festivals, most recently held here on Niagara South Coast, that being the Niagara Food Festival in the city of Welland, and of course the Marshville Heritage Festival in the township of Wainfleet. Just a short and quick shout out to all those folks that really made it happen. Great work by everyone involved, and I'm sure all those folks that attended had a great time, as we all did that attended. And of course, we look forward to those two events happening here in Niagara South Coast once again next year. So once again, great work to all those folks that made a success of those two events. So with that, members of council, any questions or comments on my report? Great news. A lot of things moving forward, especially that east-west Arturo Road will now open up those industrial lands that we have established. So great news again, and big appreciation to the province. No further comments or questions on that report. I'll now move on to the Regional Council's report. Councillor Barrick.
Good evening, Council. The last time I was here 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting planned at the region September 5th to discuss the CAO selection. That was, I believe, unduly canceled. But I did want to come this evening to get your thoughts on the intermunicipal transit. So I appreciate that as well, and be taking that back also. So this evening, though, I did want to present and share with Council as well as the public a brief video regarding the relationship between tax assessment, property assessment, and property taxes. It's quite generic. The region of Niagara put it together as an information piece, but really could be applied to any community in Ontario. So without further ado.
Explain to you how your property taxes are calculated based on how much your home is worth. Imagine there's a town that only has 3 homes, and they're each worth a different amount. The total cost to provide all of their town's services is $1,000. This is collected through property taxes. Each homeowner pays property taxes based on how much their home is worth. So, the value of all the homes are added up and divided by the town's cost, which gives us the tax rate. This tax rate is applied to all the houses to get enough money to pay for all of the services. So, each homeowner pays according to how much their house is worth. Every 4 years, the houses are reassessed. Let's say all 3 properties have gone up equally in value. If we go back to our calculation, the total cost of services hasn't changed, but the total property value has increased. When this happens, there will be a decrease in the tax rate. Now, when we apply that new rate on all the homes, everyone still pays the same. Let's recap. Property taxes are based on what a home is worth. If reassessments all increase equally, then everyone pays the same taxes as before. Now, let's say another 4 years has gone by and these homes are reassessed. During this time, the house on the right became more valuable in the market than the other 2. Okay, so time for a little more math. The total value of all the homes have increased, which means the town has to calculate a new tax rate. With this new tax rate, the first 2 homes will actually pay less than the home on the right that was reassessed at a higher value. Since the cost of services hasn't changed, the town doesn't need to collect more property taxes. However, since property taxes are based on a home's value, those taxes could potentially go up or down based on the rest of the homes. So what happens when the cost to provide services goes up? Well, it means more property taxes need to be collected from every home, and a new tax rate is calculated. To get the new rate, we take that amount that the town now needs and divide it by all the property values. The new rate is applied to all the homes, and now everyone has to pay the new tax amount to continue to fund all of the services. So, let's review. 1. Property taxes are based on the value of a home. When homes are reassessed equally, each homeowner will pay the same amount proportionately as before. 2. When homes are reassessed at different values, each homeowner will pay a different amount proportionately based on how much their home increased in value. 3. When the town's cost to provide services increases, property tax increase, then everyone pays their share proportionately across the board. And that explains the relationship between property value and property taxes.
So if anybody wanted to see that again, there's plenty of information on the region's website. And I'm not sure, Peter, Mr. Sinnes, that's about right, I think?
It's a nice simplistic
Yeah, very well done, yes. So there's a lot more information on the region website relating to tax calculators and mapping as well. So I want to share that with council tonight, but I'm happy to take any questions on this or any other matters.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of council, any questions or comments to the regional councillor? I think the one thing we do, David, take out of that video, however, is that we have to ensure at the region that they don't take that extra room between the new assessment rate, new tax rate, and the old tax rate and use it and implement it into the budget or inject it into the budget, that we in fact lower the tax rate so it's less for the taxpayer. So we have to keep that in mind. Thank you, Councillor.
I just have
Peter, do you have a question? Go ahead, Councillor Kenny. Go ahead.
With your first subject you brought up, Councillor, how are we making out with hiring or looking at a new CAO?
Thank you. Councillor?
Great, thank you, Councillor Kenny. As noted, we had a meeting scheduled September 5th. That's been canceled and been bumped to this Thursday, September 12th. So the committee does have a recommendation that council will consider at the September 12th meeting.
Thank you. Councillor? Thank you. That's fine. Great. Any further questions or comments? Great. Thank you, Councillor Burke. Members, we're now going to move on to new business, Councillor's items. Is there any new business, Councillor's items? Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just two items, one nice and one not so nice, so I'll do the nice one first. Next Monday on September 16th is the event at 27 Restaurant in Old Humberston in Port Colborne, Cocktails for Kiddies, and it is one of our major fundraisers for the Port Colborne Feline Initiative to raise money for our spay-neuter program. So I'm hoping that some of you can join us, and for those of you who've never been, it's a lot of fun. Tickets are available at Harmony on West Street. We've got some wonderful silent auction items lined up from, we've received a lot of really good support from the businesses in Port Colborne, and we hope that you can join us next Monday night. My not so nice thing is I'm still getting complaints about the trail around the Shirkston area. There apparently has been some altercations between people on horses and cyclists, and then of course there's like the Saturday night golf cart parade down the trail in the, I'm going to say roughly the Pleasant Beach area in that portion, so maybe wherever they're getting on, I don't know, but there's actually like a row of headlights that go down the trail with golf carts on a Saturday night. I know we're getting close to the end of the season where golf carts will switch to maybe snowmobiles and we won't have as many horses, but we still have the issues of trying to police this trail, and I'm kind of getting worried that people are getting a little more angry and a little more upset and a little bit more of headbutting. So we have some issues out there that we really need to get a handle on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So in order, and I'll bring that to the attention of the Niagara Regional Police. Again. Members of Council, Councillor Danch.
Well, I'm always nice, so you don't have to worry about anything I'm about to say. Little issue on our good old Main Street there down by our friend Mercier's garage. I was talking to Ron earlier tonight, and we've got a sidewalk cutout on each end of the block, but then we've got an asphalted parking lot in between, and there's no real direction as far as where the people should be walking or where people should park their vehicles. So there have been a couple of people with some concerns as far as the people walking down Main Street, whether they're going east or west, and they have to leave the parking lot area to walk onto the road because vehicles are parked in that little bit of a laneway. So, and it's not the only place in town where, you know, we've got a garage or whatever, or it's asphalted right to the street line. So maybe if we can take a little look at that, Ron, and I know we had a good conversation earlier tonight, but there's definitely some places where we can maybe just get some lines painted on these driveways where the walkers know where they're supposed to go, and hopefully the people that are driving these vehicles know where they should and should not park. So I think Ron will help me out with that one.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Danch. Certainly is doable, Councillor Danch. I've seen it done in the past where we've designated the 4-foot sidewalk or 5-foot, whatever we decide to use in the width across asphalt parking areas. Just a word of warning that it does have an impact on some businesses, so we'll proceed carefully with it. It does cut in, depending on where the sidewalk's located. If it's close to the product line, it may cut off a large area of the parking of the asphalt areas in front of the business. So it's something we can definitely take a look at, and it'll have a very nominal impact on the line painting, especially with just the one, if we're only looking at the one, and that's council's direction. If we're looking at others, we may have to bring forward a 2014 budget bump in terms of the line painting contract.
Councillor?
All we can do is ask. And on a good note, of course, just like our friendly Barb there, St. John's Lutheran Church, we're going to have a little roast beef dinner on September 20th. It's from 5 till 7 o'clock, and roast beef and some dessert. It's $9, and I was asked by the congregation to bring that forward. So anybody that's hungry on the 20th, stop on by. I believe it's going to be some Bodner's beef that'll be being cooked there, and it'll certainly be excellent. So thank you once again.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mine is a little bit more personal in that I was looking at the schedule, and I don't know if this is the right place to talk about it. There's 3 weeks between September 23rd and October 15th. If we were to move that up one to the Monday before, which is October 7th, you'd have the 3 weeks in October, but then we don't have to come back on the Tuesday after the holiday. And we often come back on the Tuesday after the holiday, and I find that if we could avoid that, it would be great. But I don't know if this is the right venue to discuss it, but at least I'm bringing it up. Let's take a look at it. 3 weeks one place or 3 weeks another place comes out to the same thing.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
Let's have a quick look at that, and she can come back with some possible changes.
Yep.
But I'll leave it with her.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further new business, Councillor's items. With none, staff, any updates? We're all good? Peter's hiding under the table. No updates? Everybody's good? Okay, excellent. Members, we do have the adoption of the minutes of the 20th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole dated August 26, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. We'll now move on to consideration of items requiring a separate discussion. We'll start off with item 3. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing Report number 2013-08, subject update on economic development initiatives, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne receives this report for information purposes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Butters, questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question through you, please, to Stephen. Let me just find it here, Stephen, okay. On page 82, I guess. It says, started in the fall of 2013, EDTM will begin the core work associated with the projects that we're looking at. But I guess I was concerned about the second one, the point there, a competitive bid process to outsource telephone survey services to conduct the skills inventory survey of 5,000 residents in Port Colborne on their skills and labor background. And then calls will prominently take place on the weekday evenings, with each survey lasting no more than 15 minutes. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I get bombarded by telemarketers all the time, calling my home and asking me questions, and I just wondered if there's a way that, not that I don't think this is a good thing or a good way to extract information that we can use, but is there a way that perhaps we can notify our residents ahead of time that it's not a telemarketer actually calling them to get stuff, but it's things that will actually help us with our economic development core where we're heading with our initiative. So I'm sure they'd be more than willing to participate in that. But before they hang up and not even give a comment, I just hope there's a way, or if you know, Stephen, if you could maybe comment on that, if there's a way that we could do that so that we can get the participation that we want to get that information back. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, through you, yes and yes. There is no third-party data set that exists that has this information. It's not available through the census. It's not available through other third-party data sets, which is the reason that we proposed it and the reason that we were successful in getting the funding from an upper level of government to be able to do this work as a pilot project. In terms of getting the word out, definitely through a venue like this, definitely through something like the City Hall News, we definitely want to get the word out so that the residents are made aware in advance, so that they will have every opportunity to understand the reasons behind the initiative and the reasons for the value of proceeding with this. The purpose of today's report was to provide the overall update so that we could proceed with the request for proposals, to seek the pricing to proceed with that work. It would be my anticipation that there would be another report back before this council before the work did commence. So there would also be that opportunity through the media, through COGECO, to get the information out to our residents at that point as well.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That's fine, Councillor. Great. Any further questions or comments on this? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Stephen. Can you just give us a quick comment breakdown on the two advisory committees that are going to be struck? I guess one in regard to the BR&E, and I'm not exactly sure what the other committee is. And will these be a committee of council, or will they be standalone committees?
Mr. Thompson.
That you'll be overseeing.
Mr. Mayor, through you, the structure is one larger committee and one executive of that committee. So there's an executive of 4 individuals that have come together 2 or 3 times already to deal with some of the matters in terms of scoping out the project. Then there's a larger group. The larger group includes 4 directors of the city. It includes 2 people from the Chamber of Commerce. It includes other community and business stakeholders and other regional stakeholders, for example, the Niagara Industrial Association. So we've got a large group, and that larger group we're envisioning coming together roughly 3 times. And that larger group is intended to be a resource network. So if a business is experiencing an issue that might relate to what a department covers or what a ministry of the provincial government covers or et cetera, we've got the right stakeholders engaged that would be able to help to address those business issues. So at this point, it's been structured around the staff level within the city and the business community and other stakeholders that have some specific interest and expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one other quick question. What's the response been like from the business community with regards to the committee? Favorable, not favorable? Just quick feedback on that.
Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, through you, we've got a full house coming up for the meeting that's taking place over the next week. We reached out to roughly we reached out to about 18 people. 2 or 3 has scheduling issues, and the rest are going to be in attendance. So it's definitely got the representation both from across Port Colborne, but some of the stakeholders that have a larger Niagara mandate are expected to be in attendance as well. And this work also dovetails very closely with the work that the Niagara Workforce Planning Board does, for example. They're part of this process, and also the Niagara Industrial Association, which was a partner in a manufacturing survey. They're also represented as part of this group as well. I would add that much of the work that we're doing is to, at this point, to scope out the businesses that we should be meeting with, and we're trying to ensure that the work that's done includes obviously the top 15 employers, because they're major employers in the community, but also a broad range of commercial, downtown, other service businesses that are really core to what we do here, and also tourism businesses, to make sure that we have that right cross-section and are able to help the businesses that need the help. Lots of people have done lots of surveys. This is about doing surveys to build relationships and to provide help.
So it has been positive?
Feedback's been extremely positive.
Great, thank you. Further questions or comments? With that, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. The next report, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing, report number 2013-09, subject Economic Development Peer Review. That the Council of the City of Port Colborne accept this report and continues implementation of economic development programs and activities accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Danch, questions or comments? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Just two things, both to Stephen. First, I would like to say thank you for making all of this happen. It was a good thing for Port Colborne. I'm one of the many councillors that took part in the project, and having done that, I would very much like to have a copy of the actual peer review. I would find that beneficial. So can you possibly make that happen, that we could all get a copy?
Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, through you, the report has been received from the peer review team. No, actually not just from the peer review team. The process was they wrote their report. Their report went to the committee that they report to. The committee approved the report, and then we as the City of Port Colborne received the report. So we do now have it in our possession. The report was not received the report they provided was not received in time for this council report, which was drafted roughly 20 days ago. But we do now have it based on council direction. That would dictate what the next steps would be with that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Then we could all get a copy of that then? Sooner.
Mr. Thompson.
I do have the report, and I suppose would seek direction from CAO or mayor in terms of distribution of said report, or if it comes forward through a business planning session or other means.
Thank you. Short answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the next thing, if you could just speak to what the possible next steps are. That's the only other thing.
Mr. Thompson.
The evaluation was extremely encompassing. It looked at every newsletter that we've ever produced. It looked at our annual activity report, which is a 30-something page document that we've prepared each and every year for the past 4 or 5 years. And then it included the meetings with 18 meetings with 21 stakeholders. Wow, it was a whirlwind couple days for these folks, but they were still smiling at the end of it. The report does include recommendations, and the report is also an ongoing process. The report also leads to an ongoing process. They're expecting for us to continue to follow through with providing yearly updates to them as part of this process. So there are a number of communications and other recommendations that they have provided, and based on the direction I just heard in terms of circulating the report, you'll see all the information very soon.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Stephen. Just one quick question on page 85. Under the staff comments and discussion section, it says that the committee identified the lack of a council-adopted mission statement as a critical issue to be addressed prior to the scheduling of an on-site evaluation. will that be something that we as council will be discussing further in the future? Will you bring that to us? Are you looking for direction on that? Would you like us to create something for you to work with, or how are we going to process that?
Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, through you. The report outlines that before the peer review team would schedule their trip, one peer review person coming in from BC, the other one coming in from Eastern Pennsylvania, they asked for something that provided a bit of an explanation of the scope of delivery of economic development services by the Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing Department. What was drafted is the roughly 6 or 7 bullets that is in this report. So the evaluation that the peer review team did was based on a general understanding that this was the scope of activities, call it a goal and mission statement if you like. So the work that they've done is really based around an understanding that that's the core business that the Economic Development Department is in, but certainly it's I suppose a living framework as well, based on budgets and structures and activities and priorities of council as well. So I would see this as potentially having opportunities to be fluid. Everything is fluid year to year or otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Elliott.
Just want to follow up. So are they looking for us to adopt what staff has put forward and maybe remove the interim tag off that, or do we want to finalize anything? Is there anything you want us to do that provides more information or more of a mission statement from us, so that the peer review committee knows what we're looking for?
Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, through you, the peer review team's work is complete. Certainly, I believe it would be a positive thing to ensure that obviously council and staff are on the same page in terms of what that looks like. But the ball's now in our court. The peer review team has not asked for us to do anything specific with it, so the ball's in our court.
Well, if I can add to that too, Councillor Elliott, when I met with the team, I made it very clear to the team that this council, as well as the committees and the staff, as well as the direction that we've taken economically in terms of our strategies, isn't about putting statements together and putting lines together and putting the fluff together. It's more about rolling up our sleeves and getting down to the job that has to be done. And therefore, when they did take a walk and drive and stroll around the city of Port Colborne, they clearly recognized our mission statement, and that was to identify, plan, and implement, execute. And they're very complimentary on that fact in comparison to other jurisdictions that they happen to visit. Any further questions or comments? With that, members, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? With none, ask for a motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's agenda. Councillor Kenny. Councillor Butters, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to our council agenda. First off, Ashley, any addendum items? No, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
These microphones are taking turns tonight. Thank you, Ashley. Members of council, mover and seconder to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Butters, Councillor Bodner, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a pecuniary interest in item B on the in-camera portion of the council meeting. It was inadvertently included in my package. I subsequently returned it to the clerk, and I have not discussed any of the information that was on that item with any councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further disclosures, members? With none, I'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. I do have a set of minutes here from the 30th meeting regular of council dated August 26th, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Items requiring a separate discussion this evening. Mover and seconder for the items listed on your agenda, please. Councillor Steele. Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. I do have 3 proclamations, and I will be looking for a mover and seconder. The first being the English as a Second Language Week proclamation. Whereas Ontario has been the destination of choice for many immigrants who have added to the diversity of the province by bringing their culture, their customs, and language, even as they endeavor to acquire the ability to communicate in English. And whereas the community of English as a second language learners are represented in all aspects of society, they are students, they are volunteers, as well as workers, employers, and business owners, laborers, and finally professionals, neighbors, and friends. And whereas the professional organization Teachers of English as a Second Language Ontario hosts a conference in the City of Toronto each year to maintain and expand the skills and abilities of its members. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim October 20th, 26th, 2013 as English as a Second Language Week here in the City of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Bodnar. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The second proclamation is with respect to Community Health and Well-Being Week. That whereas Ontario must achieve the best possible health and well-being for everyone living in the province of Ontario, and whereas health is much more than the absence of illness, it is the complete state of physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being. And whereas Ontario health providers, health agencies, local health integration networks, and the provincial government must work toward a future without systemic barriers that prevent people from reaching their full health potential, a future where everyone can make the choices that allow them to live a fulfilling life. And whereas to achieve this future, we need to shift Ontario's fragmented sickness system to a community health and well-being system that promotes the best possible health and well-being for everyone living in the province of Ontario. And whereas during the first week of October, community health centers across the country will be spotlighting the importance of working together to achieve a complete sense of health and well-being for all people in all communities. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim the first week of October as Community Health and Well-Being Week here in the City of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The third proclamation is Canadian Autism Awareness Month, that whereas October is Canadian Autism Awareness Month, and whereas autism spectrum disorder, ASD, affects more than 100,000 Ontarians and is now recognized as the most common neurological disorder affecting 1 in every 94 children, as well as their families, their family, and their community. And whereas ASD is a spectrum disorder, which means it not only manifests itself differently in every individual, but its characteristics will change over the life of each individual as well. A child with ASD will become an adult with ASD. And whereas Autism Ontario is the leading source of information and referral on autism and is one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community since 1973, Autism Ontario has been providing support for thousands of families across the province of Ontario. And whereas Autism Ontario is dedicated to increasing public awareness about autism, the association and its chapters share common goals by providing information, education, they support research, and advocating for programs and services within the autism and for the autism community. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim October as Canadian Autism Awareness Month here in the City of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. And as I'm sitting here reading these proclamations, and I'm looking at our building inspector over there, I'm thinking to myself, maybe we should have a fourth proclamation proclaiming it Notre Dame Week. But after yesterday, no, it was a bad game, bad game. Lyle and I are huge Notre Dame Fighting Irish fans, and but we were sort of moping yesterday after that game. We'll come back to it, Lyle, don't worry. Anyways, however, yeah, Philadelphia. I haven't talked Lyle into being a Philadelphia fan yet. Folks, I do have the minutes of the boards, commissions, and committees. I have one set of minutes here for your perusal, as well as support. The Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting of August 14, 2014. The discussion notes, however, are draft, but I will be looking for a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele? Councillor Elliott? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any notices of motion this evening? With none, Madam Clerk, the floor is yours to introduce the bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce the following bylaw to be read first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 5999-105-13, being a bylaw to dedicate certain lands as a public highway as described as Block 84 on Plan 59M150, known as Apollo Drive.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Butters, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Madam Clerk, confirm to my bylaw, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 6000100613, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its special and regular meetings September 9th, 2013.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Folks, before I go into closed session, I do want to announce our next upcoming meetings. We do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, September 23rd. I should say we have a meeting so far scheduled for September 23rd, Committee of the Whole, Council here in the Chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m., followed by Tuesday, October 15th, 2013, once again here in the Chamber, Committee of the Whole, and Council, beginning at 6:30 p.m. So I will be looking for a motion to move into closed session to proceed and entertain the minutes of the closed session portion of the August 26, 2013 Council meeting. B, a confidential Department of Planning and Development Services Report number 2013-53 regarding a potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239 to C, a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality or local board. C, confidential memorandum from the Chief Administrative Officer concerning an environmental matter pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board. And finally, D, a confidential verbal report from the Chief Administrative Officer concerning a human resources matter pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239-2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and 2392D, labor relations or employee negotiations. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Doucette. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Have a wonderful week.